3, 2, 1. Hey guys, it's Audible Andy here, coming back at you with some more banger chunky Moo content. Today I wanted to make a Kirara guide. So I just got Kirara from the new event. Even though she's been out for like over a year now, I just have never gotten her. So I've always wanted to build and play her, so I feel like this is the perfect opportunity. So today we're going to go over exactly what her kit does, and then we're going to go over weapons, my personal recommendation for her build, and also her most optimal teams. So let's get started. So first off, her normal attacks do a 4 attack string. These don't deal very much damage. And then she also does a charge attack where she hits 3 times, and honestly this one's really cool because she uses her claws instead of her sword. So I'm quite a big fan of her animations. However, she's not really going to be doing much damage. Her plunge multipliers aren't very high either, so it's not really someone you want to play with Xinyan either. The next part of her kit, and the most important part of her kit, is going to be her elemental skill. So there's a lot of text for this one, so I'll just sum it up. Basically, when you press her skills, she creates a shield, and at level 5, this is as high as I could get it day 1, it absorbs 13.3% max HP plus 1.4k. I currently have 35,000 HP, so I'll just do a quick calculation here for that one. So my shields will be absorbing about 6,000 HP, although I do plan on leveling up her elemental skill. So to get some more, I'll probably stop at level 3, so I'll be getting 14% max HP. And then the next part of her kit is that, so she has an 8-second cooldown on her tap skill, and her shields last for 12 seconds. So if you do first tap skill and the shield doesn't break, you do a second tap skill, it will actually stack on the shield like Toma. So we go from, even though the shield probably won't have that 6,000 absorption, so if we're doing a perfect world where you're not taking any damage on the shield, personally my shields will be absorbing 9,655 damage with the 35,000 HP. The next part of her elemental skill, and definitely the most fun part, is her hold skill. So her hold skill, she turns into a little box and she moves around much faster like Sayu. She's also able to climb walls and she's able to jump. So this is a really good exploration passive. So unlike Sayu, when you're not putting in any inputs, she doesn't automatically move around. So I would say this is a better exploration passive than Sayu, even though Sayu has healing. So Sayu's probably more valuable in exploration, however, Kirara, her elemental skill is better. And with Kirara's hold elemental skill, the longer you're in it, the longer your cooldown will be for, and your cooldown doesn't start until you end your hold skill. It will go to a maximum of 12 seconds, so if you are not doing exploration, I don't recommend doing your hold skill because you can be in the state for 10 seconds, so instead of press skill, wait 8 seconds, you hold your skill, go for 10 seconds, then you have a 12-second cooldown, making it a 22-second wait for getting your shield, and the shield only lasts 12 seconds as well, so that's a lot of downtime if you do that. And then the final part of the skill is just the dendro damage that you do. So when you collide with an enemy, you do 44.5% damage at level 5, and once you end the skill, you'll do 190% damage hit, which is actually pretty good damage, especially for someone that will be having access to spread. So she won't be doing a negligible amount of damage, which is pretty good for support. Although this will be doing that percentage of her attack, so actually this damage might be negligible because my HP built Kirara only has 1,000 attack. Next part of her elemental skill is her burst. So this is just a small nuke, mainly to apply dendro damage to enemies. It'll do one big hit, and then it'll summon, I'm not sure if it's 6 or 8 little bombs, but it'll be like Klee's skill, where they are on a delay and then they'll blow up when enemies collide with them. And they can stay around for 12 seconds. And this burst has a cooldown of 15 seconds, and the energy cost is 60. So you might be using this every other rotation because you don't want to build energy recharge on Kirara. Then her Ascension talents is, so with her first Ascension talent, you will actually be able to get a little bit more value out of her hold elemental skill. So when you collide with enemies, you will create a 20% shield, which will stack onto the already existing shield, and this can stack up to 3 times. This is not 20% of her HP, it's actually 20% of the multiplier here. So that's not much, but you will be getting an extra 60% of what you've already done. So it's not too bad if you want to hold the elemental skill and get some damage in, because your shield will actually, it'll tank a little bit more. And then her final Ascension passive is just, it'll increase the damage dealt by her kick and by her burst um, by 0.4% of every 1000% of Kirara's max HP, and 0.3% of every 1000 max HP that Kirara has. And then her final passive is, I think, the same as Alloy, where you just won't startle enemies. Now let's go into her weapons. So her best in slot weapon is Key of Kajnasut. Unfortunately, I did try to pull for this weapon and I got scammed. I got Skyward Pride instead, I think my third copy of Skyward Pride, so I'm really not thriving. Her second best weapon, the one that I have, is the Dockhand's Assistant. The Dockhand's Assistant gives her 41% HP, and it also has this Elemental Mastery passive, which comes from using Elemental Skill and Burst. So if I did hold skill, did some damage, and then did the kick, and then I used her burst, I would be getting the full passive. So this weapon's pretty good for her. If you don't have either of those, unfortunately we don't have any other HP scaling swords in the game, so I just recommend Fab for its support capabilities, maybe Sacrificial Sword, or the final one that's pretty good if you're using her as a support in Aggravate is the Sapwood Blade, which basically means when you trigger a Dendro related reaction, you drop a seed that gives the character who collects it 60 elemental mastery. So this is a pretty good support weapon, and I probably recommend it above Fav and Sacrificial Sword. So for artifact loadouts, I personally have decided to use Kirara on Instructor because I'm still able to get 35,000 HP with this build, and I plan on using her in Aggravate teams, so the 120 EM that it gives to the team is really, really valuable. If you don't want to put her on Instructor, the most popular combo is the TOM and Varakash's Glow, because both of these give you 20% HP, but as I've displayed with my build, you don't actually need those. If I change my weapon to Sapwood, I still have 31,000 HP, which is really good, and you really don't need more than that unless you have Dockhand's Assistant or Key of Kajnasut. I personally don't recommend the two-piece. And then the final one, which we'll get into teams in a second, the final recommendation is if you want to play her with Alhaitham, you want to put her on Deepwood Memories, because this shreds Dendro Res by 30%, and it's less conditional than Instructor because you just have to hit them with an elemental skill or burst. For substats, you want to go HB, HB, HP, unless you're using her in Nilu Bloom, and that's about it for builds. Now for teams. I am yet to test Kirara, but I will have some gameplay footage up of my personal favorite teams. So my first recommendation is Yai Miko Aggravate with Nahida. My Nahida's on Deepwood, so she'll be supporting herself, meaning Kirara doesn't have to be on Deepwood, and the Elemental Mastery buff from Instructor is going to be very nice for Yai Miko and Fischl and Nahida. So she works as a shielder for the team and also a buffer for the whole team. I do prefer to play Kokomi for this team because of the healing and because this team can be turned into a quick bloom team. However, not all of us have Kokomi, and this is a video about Kirara, so this is one of our best teams. The next team I recommend, I usually use Baiju for this team, but once again, Baiju is a pretty niche support, so you can use Kirara for this team. She also doesn't apply too much Dendro, so she will have the Quicken aura. However, it will be easier to swirl with Kazuha on this team than it is with Nahida because Kirara applies less Dendro, and if you play aggravate teams with Kazuha, you know how annoying it is to get swirls because often the Dendro characters will apply too much Dendro and get rid of the Electro aura, which is really annoying. So it's quite a good pick on this team since you just need to apply Dendro once to get the Quicken aura onto enemies. Once again, Kaching and Fischl and even Kazuha will all be benefiting from the Elemental Mastery buff from Instructor, and my Kaching is on Light of Foliar Incision, so the more EM, the better for her. The next team that you can use her on is Nilu Bloom, so I use Kole because she has really good Dendro application. However, Kirara is not a bad option because you want someone on Instructor in this team. And also in her kit, her shields have a 250% effectiveness against Dendro damage, so you won't be taking as much damage from the blooms. And the shield will be way stronger against the self-damage of blooms. You will probably want to have, I believe it's her C4 that applies Dendro off field to be playing her in this team optimally, but still Nahida applies most of the Dendro in this team, so you should be fine without it. So the final team recommendation is Alhaitham teams. You really have a conundrum of what to run here though. So playing in Hyperbloom teams, you want her to be on Deepwood, you really need her to be on Deepwood, even though the EM buff from Instructor benefits Kuki a lot and it benefits Alhaitham, you need to have Deepwood for the damage from the Hyperblooms and also for Alhaitham's damage. Alternatively, you can play either a triple Dendro aggravate team, sorry, triple Dendro spread team with Yaimiko or Fischl, but you probably want to be playing Yaimiko and Fischl or Yaimiko and Kuki for this team. But once again, your Alhaitham will be doing less damage without Deepwood on this team. So you could put Deepwood on Kuki and have her on a damage build, but I personally just like to keep my characters on one build, so I just want her built for Hyperbloom. And she still works as a healer and a damage dealer because aggravates have a lot of elemental mastery benefits, and she also heals more with elemental mastery, but you will really want Kirara on Deepwood for this team because your Alhaitham will be dealing most of the damage. Even though all the characters benefit from the EM buff from Instructor, it's still, you just need her on Deepwood. So for constellations for Kirara, I imagine most of you will have her C0 since we just got her for free from the Simulanka event, but I'll still go over her constellations, how valuable they are, and when I recommend to stop pulling. So her first one, every 8000 max HP Kirara has, will create one extra Catgrass Cardamom when she uses her ult. So this basically means, I'm not sure if it's 6 or 8, but it'll go either up to 10 or 12 being created. So these are the little bombs caused by her burst. Personally, this one's not bad, but it's nothing crazy and it won't make or break her. So her Constellation 2 is basically just for co-op, so it is when she creates a shield, she will create a shield with 40% absorption of the original shield for teammates. So when it says other party members, it means like other players. So if you like to play co-op, this isn't a bad one. However, Diona does the same thing, and I'm pretty sure it's not bound to constellations, so it's nothing to write home about. I don't rate this at all because a character's value isn't really tied to their co-op potential. This is more of just something if you like co-op to go for. Her C3 buffs her elemental skill level by 3. So this constellation is very important, her constellation 4. Basically, when a teammate is protected by Kirara's shield, and then they do normal charge or plunging attack, Kirara will do a coordinated attack, summoning one of her little bombs from her burst, dealing 200% of her attack, which is pretty good damage, way more than the bombs deal on baseline, but you won't be building her for attack, so this is negligible, and this will trigger once every 3.8 seconds. This is a very important constellation for teams that need higher Dendro application, especially for Nilo Bloom teams. I would say this is the most important constellation, and say you've gotten C3 just pulling for Nilu and Navia, I would say it might be worth going for C4 because this is definitely her best constellation. C5 buffs her elemental burst damage, and C6 is pretty good. It'll give all team members a 12% damage bonus after she uses her skill or burst. So this is just a nice quality of life thing, but I don't recommend going for her C6. Her best constellation is C4, and that's the only one really worth getting. So I'd say if you pulled for Nilo or Navia and you've instantly gotten C3, go for C4. I personally really want C4, but until this event, I didn't even have a Kirara, so I'm not going to be pulling for that. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. I hope you learned a thing or two about Kirara in this video. I hope this has helped you learn how to build your Kirara and decide what to go for. Yeah, stay tuned for more Banger Chunky Moo content. And if you're going for Kirara C4, good luck with your pulls. Thank you for watching.